This excerpt comes from the Critical Review, or Annals of Literature, beginning on page 141. The Critical Review was a prominent British journal published from 1756 to 1817. It functioned as a literary magazine that summarized, excerpted, and reviewed newly published books, historical accounts, and academic texts. Historically, this specific topic was famously covered in the 1770s by the German historian and missionary Christian Georg Andreas Oldendorp, whose work was heavily reviewed in English journals of this era. Ever still increased, not only by the Swedes and Brandenburgers sealing their navigations to the coast of Guinea, but from the annual demand of a supply of more than 100,000 Negroid recruits for their own colonies. The author confines his relation of the first Negroid trade to that carried on by the Portuguese and Spaniards. Gonzalez was the first Portuguese who, in 1442, returned with Negroid slaves, purchased, instead of the Africans, who had, till then, been carried off by mere violence. But soon after, the Portuguese became better acquainted with the African regions and their valuable productions. Prince Henry founded the first Guinea Company, that settled factories in the fortress of Arguin, and got the exclusive privilege of trading with the Arabs. The trade soon increased, so that, in 1455, not less than 700 or 800 Negroid slaves were annually exported to Lisbon. At length the Portuguese, in 1471, discovered the Gold Coast, and ever since, the intercourse between Portugal and Guinea was continued. The Portuguese endeavored to exclude other nations from Guinea, whilst the rest of the European navigators were, in spite of papal bulls, and all the reports industriously spread of the pretended dangers of that coast, striving to get a share of that profitable gold trade. The discovery of the Gold Coast served, indeed, yet more to enlarge the sphere of the navigation of the Portuguese than their slave trade, but it forced them also to extend themselves on the coasts, and to settle colonies in Congo, Angola, and other places, which they had till then neglected. The discovery of the Gold Coast served, indeed, yet more to enlarge the sphere of the navigation of the Portuguese than their slave trade, but it forced them also to extend themselves on the coasts, and to settle colonies in Congo, Angola, and other places, which they had till then neglected. Prince Henry's colonies were enlarged by his successors. King John II, in 1492, expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews in Loango, who are despised even by the very Negroes, are descended. By these colonists, St. Thomas soon became a considerable place of trade, and valuable for its sugar plantations. 30 years after their settlement, not less than 156,000 arrobes, of 30 pounds weight each, of sugar were exported, and the engines of 60 sugar works, turned by slaves. These Negroes were purchased in Guinea, Congo, and Manicongo, and the colonists had plantations furnished with from 150 to 3,000 Negroid slaves. In the beginning of the 16th century, the Spaniards and Portuguese began to transport Negroes, for similar labors, to the West Indies and Brazils, by which the Negroid trade was rapidly increased. The Spaniards, on their first settling in the West Indies, immediately treated the natives of that part of the globe according to the Pope's instruction. They divided them by families or districts among themselves, as slaves.